Hello, welcome to Cineverm, a weekly podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria,
And I'm David.
and this week on episode 27, we're discussing Saint Maud, written and directed by Rose Glass. And here's a quick synopsis for anyone who hasn't heard of this film. So, having recently found God, self-effacing young nurse Maud arrives at a plush home to care for Amanda, a hedonistic dancer left frail from a chronic illness when a chance encounter with a former colleague throws up hints of a dark past. It then becomes clear there is more to Sweet Maud than meets the eye. So, David, you have seen this film way before I even knew about it, and you kind of brought it up to me as something we could watch. I am super curious to see what were your impressions of this film after watching it.
I'm curious for yours because for some reason, I think that you maybe didn't like it as much as I did, but we'll see. But I really like this movie. I like the first time I saw it. Well, I've only seen it once, and then I went back and rewatched most of it, just different scenes, and I liked it even more. And it's one of those movies that I liked more the more I thought about it. But it's
Interesting.
just one of those just I don't know. Maybe the reasons are sort of personal, but I feel like all the basics are really good. I mean, the main actress, Maud Morfitt Clark, she's just, I feel like she's just really good at this character. She just portrays it really well. I just bought that she was very isolated and just the pious kind of personality. I think she did that really well, but also just on the inside, really sad and lonely.
Yeah.
And I thought the cinematography was really good. I don't know the seaside town that they're in. There were a lot of nice shots of that town, especially at night when she's just kind of wandering the streets and the lights. And so I really like the. I was rewatching scenes without listening to the sound, and I was like, man, I could just watch this movie on mute because I feel like it just looks really nice. I don't know what it is about
Yeah.
it, but I liked the aesthetic. It was a little too dark at times. Like sometimes the scenes were really just like really overly dark, and I didn't like that. But besides that, the cinematography was really good. Um, just the themes of it are interesting, and I don't think I've seen another movie that was exactly like this. I mean, I think if you're an A24 fan, you're probably gonna like
Yeah.
this movie, especially if you like their other horror movies. Obviously, The Witch and Hereditary kind of it sort of reminded me of those movies in certain aspects, more The Witch, I guess. But I just think it's that tone, I think all A24 movies do really well with that kind of personal tone of focusing on one character and getting really subjective with that character and just showing you their world and their experience, their subjective experience, no matter how crazy it is. And I feel like this
Yeah.
movie did that really well. Um, and the horror elements of it were a- actual horror. Like I feel like those are the movies that scare me the most are ones that could be real and could actually
Yeah.
happen to you. Like it could happen to anyone. I mean, feasibly. So, I mean, everything that
Yeah.
happens to this girl in the movie was realistic, from her perspective. Like it could happen, even though it had the
Yeah.
supernatural elements and the religious elements, it could happen. And so those are the most scary to me, especially when it has to do with mental illness and then religion, like the way this movie mixed the religious piety with mental illness. I'm sure there's other movies that do that, but this one, for some reason, this one hit like a certain angle of it that I hadn't seen in other movies of just that, like how the horror that can that can come of someone who has serious mental illness but also
Yeah.
has the religion just getting into their brain and how what that creates, is real super interesting to me. So yeah, I really like this movie. What were your
Awesome.
impressions after watching it? it's supposed to be Wales, I think.
That makes a
Because
lot of sense.
yeah, they speak Welsh at certain points in the movie,
Oh,
so
oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's
Yeah, just off topic a little bit, but man, I would love to live by like an ocean town, like a seaside town. Like I don't know why, that just seems so fucking cool.
yeah, it's kind of romantic in a way. But in this movie, the cinematography, I guess, it made it really depressing. Just really,
Yeah, and
uh, maybe
and
this
that's
that
what I
yeah.
love because I feel like I could be happy and depressed there at the same time. Like it seems like a cool place to be depressed.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, back to the cinematography. Let's see, I had written down some things that I noticed that I really liked because so I loved the framing. M Most of the time, I loved how they picked like these shots and the shot designs specifically where they use depth. And I feel like a lot of directors, especially new directors, don't know to do that. So, uh, big props to the cinematographer and the director for that. The cinematographer's name, by the way, is Ben Fordsman.
Mm.
So I looked that up because it did have an impression on me. And then there was the use of there's like a few shots where they used the split diopter shot,
Mm-hmm.
which is like kind of when you have like you can have something in an extreme close up, but then also have like the wideness of a wide lens, and you basically splitting like the lens in half and having like two very contrasting shots in one. I forgot his name. The guy that did the first Mission Impossible. He
Oh,
did like
right. De Palma, Brian De Palma.
yeah, De Palma. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He is like he's
Yeah.
obsessed with that kind of shot. So it was
Yeah.
really cool seeing it in this, and I was not expecting it. But yeah, just the visuals overall, God, they were fantastic. There was one shot where it was just, well, I think there was like two or three where it's kind of like like it feels like a frame within a frame, and then the camera's just kind of like tilting left and right, or just like flipping over itself and like going upside down.
Mhm. Yeah.
I really love when people like use the camera to kind of internalize whatever the character's feeling. So. That's probably the most positive stuff I have to say about the film
Okay.
was the cinematography. Oh, and the actress. I can't
Morphid.
pronounce her first. Yeah, Morphet. That's a crazy name. Morphet Clark. Yeah, she does very well. I mean, this film like really reminds me of like the Joker.
Yes,
The one
I
with
I wrote that down too because I'm like, oh, this is like a religious female version of the Joker and a way better, I would, in my opinion, version of this kind of thing, of like a really isolated, mentally ill character going downhill or uphill depending on whether you're in their perspective or an outside perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. I absolutely hated the Joker movie, and this movie is much better because it feels like it was at least designed a little more where the Joker felt like kind of a carbon copy of other people's ideas,
Mm-hmm.
at least in my opinion. But yeah, she did amazing. Like the amount of I guess I don't think it's spoiling, but like the amount of body horror and trauma that her character goes through,
Mm.
like mentally and physically, she really walks that line of it still remaining believable and then also kind of making you cringe because it's like, oh my God, what are you doing? But the thing, and it's like weird because like I, I wrote a review on like a letterbox to try to like formulate why I don't like this movie,
Okay.
and it just feels so thin. Like it feels like there's no real like I didn't feel any like real meaning or purpose outside the themes, which
Hmm.
you mentioned like the religious and the the mental illness. Like those two things are very interesting and they're pulled off well in the film, but like I don't know, I was just so bored and I felt like I knew exactly how everything was gonna fall in place or whatever, and then it was just like I just didn't care about the character. Not that the character has to be likable, but it was I don't know. I just had like this weird feeling of like I didn't understand the point of it. Like what was the theme? Like I feel like mental illness and religion, I don't feel like it's enough of a theme to anchor a whole film on. Like I wanted something more from the main character, or I wanted something more from other characters, like some sort of deeper underlying subtext that kind of anchors everything into some sort of emotion. I guess that's what I like about film. So it's like I didn't feel what the emotional point of the story was. Like I
Whoa.
get the religious stuff, I get the mental illness stuff, but I feel like those are just too broad and it didn't really specify, like I don't know, it just felt like, and I like just thinking back to the film, like I remember all the big moments, but it kind of just for me it added up to almost really nothing. And I mean I think the same as like the Joker, like that film was like, what is the point of this? It feels so empty. Like it's not really trying to say anything. And this film is better made, but I feel like it has the same issue. Whether it's the character or just the narrative as a whole, I don't feel like there's any deeper momentum or meaning. I don't know. So that
Maybe,
was my
yeah.
overall impression of it.
Maybe I'm wondering if maybe this theme just doesn't resonate with you for some reason,
Yeah.
because that is the, I mean, that's interesting because it's the similarity between the Joker and this. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that theme doesn't resonate. For me, it's like the theme is more, maybe the most meaningful theme in this movie, or the most like thought provoking, or like it wasn't really the religious part or the mental illness. It's more like what I got or what I felt from it is, and also Joker, I guess the good aspect of it is like, but this movie way better, is
Yeah.
the isolate, how easy it is in today's world for someone to get so isolated, like from people, that like how much they can just spin off into their own reality. Just
Yeah.
even though they're around people and they have a job and they're interacting with people every day, they're so disconnected, like socially isolated from people. And it's really interesting. I don't know, I just find that really an interesting theme, I guess. But
Hmm.
do you like, I mean, maybe you're not a fan, I wonder if you're like a fan in general of like just character study movies, where it's just, it's not about the theme as much, it's not really about the plot, it's more just like, this is a person on the kind of the edge of society, just an interesting person that you would not run into every day.
Yeah.
And we're just going to, we're just going to be with this person for a little while, and nothing huge is going to happen necessarily. It's just going to be, just a basically day in the life of this person, because they're just
Yeah.
a weird person, and it's just fun to watch. I don't know. Do you like that genre in general, or do you find like that's not enough for a movie?
Yeah. So, wow, this is amazing. Literally just hearing you talk made me like just triggered the the reason I don't like this film. And like, all right, so the character driven thing. So I think, and this is well, this is my taste, I guess, is what I just realized. I love stories that are character driven, but when the character has some sort of, I don't want to say goal, but they have something driving them. And I feel like that's inherently necessary to tell a character study. In my opinion, a good character study story or a good written character, period, is they have to have some sort of uh not it doesn't even have to really be a goal or a purpose or a mission. It's just like they have something inside them that push them towards something else. And I
Hmm.
feel like this film has the seed of what her purpose or whatever the thing is driving the character to do something. There is that seed here, but I feel like it's kind of planted very weakly and then it's not really pushed far enough. So like in the synopsis, I say, Maud arrives at a home to care for this character, Amanda. And in that, there is, I feel like, something for the character to do, but I never feel like the character is actually acting. There's no struggle for this character to get to where I guess she would. And I think that's the problem of the film for me is that I think it's just a writing problem. Like I feel like this character and then inherently the story of the character is very thin and I don't think she explored it or dug deep enough for me to enjoy it, I guess.
It sounds
Because you know,
like
like,
oh, I was
oh
gonna
no, you
say
go ahead.
like it sounds like what you're saying is like there's not enough conflict. Maybe that this the character doesn't go through doesn't really there's not a conflict that they have to overcome. It's just more about like things happening to them. I don't know.
Yeah, it does feel like, yeah, it definitely, yeah. It feels like, I don't know why I was thinking about it. It kind of feels like a music video, not in the way music videos are created or anything, but how music videos just have moments. And this film had a bunch of, crazy and also like very interesting moments and ideas. And they're just, like boom, 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 boom. Like all these things are happening to the character, around the character. But then I don't really feel like the character is active in any way. I don't understand why I'm following this character. Like, I feel like Maud could be any random person who is in the same predicament without anything uniquely identifying her in any way.
I think also maybe something that contributes to this, which how you feel about it, is that there's not much backstory for Maud. They don't really give hardly anything away about
Yeah,
what she was like before this movie, and maybe I guess you
yeah,
could call that a weakness about the movie. Maybe for people who like yourself like need something more to connect
yeah,
with the character, because there really wasn't much that they reveal about her life. There's something, hints about how she was
yeah,
before, but it didn't give a really clear answer to why she is the way she is at the beginning of this movie.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think part of the fun is guessing what that is, or what guessing what she was like before, or what
Hmm.
exactly that moment was that made turned her into this a character. I think that's kind of fun, but maybe that's just me,
Okay.
and maybe lots of people it would be more fun if if there was more details about this person so you could connect with them. So I'm trying to understand
Yeah,
your perspective, but also argue the opposite because
yeah,
I think it's really interesting to have a character that's kind of mysterious and you're like
yeah.
I don't really know why this character is like this. Like another movie I wrote down was The Piano Teacher. It reminded me of that,
Oh,
of
yeah,
like Michael Haneke, and it's just about this really messed up lady who is a piano teacher, but she's also like this movie has masochist tendencies, and somehow finds this guy that's playing, starts playing along with her, and it's just really weird and messed up movie about this character. But from what I remember, it never really explains why this kind of meek middle-aged piano teacher is this crazy behind the scenes, just wants to be punished and and brutalized because and that gives her pleasure. But
yeah,
it's such an interesting character to me that I will watch it even though I know nothing about her, how she ended up this way. It's just kind of like it's super interesting just to watch a
yeah.
person. God, maybe it's a bad thing about my personality that I like to watch people just spiraling down. I like movies about people that are just spiraling down. They've just reached the point of no return, and
Yeah.
they're just you just know that okay, they're well at a certain point in the movie, it's not going to end well, and I like that for some reason. But
Yeah, and like in general, I like that very much too. I just feel like I just don't I just think this feels kind of like a first draft to me. Like if I was a movie studio head and this script came to me, I'd be like, you have a lot of amazing ideas, but I need to find out why you're telling this. Like what is, like I listen to a bunch of like writing podcasts and just like whatever whenever I can hear like interviews with authors and stuff. And then there's gosh, can't remember who it was. But there's one creator, which I can't remember now, but he always asks a question like why, and he like writes it at the top of every page whenever he starts writing. And he's like, what is the one word that kind of boils this whole film down? And that's what I'm aiming for. Whether it's despair or sadness or grief or religion even or hope or whatever it is. Like that's kind of like the where you're pointed towards. I feel like this film didn't really have, or at least I didn't feel like it was really. It didn't feel like it was funneling to a central idea. It just felt like a compilation
Oh
of
man,
ideas. But
to me
but
that.
but it's
Oh, go
but
ahead.
what's oh no, you can go.
Oh man, I was just to me the central idea is like which it happens over and over again in the movie where
Mhm.
she encounters people that are like being really nice to her, but she doesn't she's so in her own world that she doesn't realize that she has an opportunity to connect with another person because she's
Yeah.
just so focused on her for some reason that I picked up on that when I was watching the movie and I was like
Hmm.
that's kind of the if there's a message to this movie, it's just the how interesting it is that we live in like this kind of disconnected society where everyone is around each other, but you can be very isolated at the same time. And there's these huge chasms between people, even though they could be talking to each other, but it doesn't mean anything because they're I don't know the lack of she doesn't have any opportunities to find like intimacy. It seems like in her life,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
way, or I don't know what it is that's, but I mean that's gets into the religion thing and what is it that's really causing her to be beyond the point of no return to where it doesn't seem like anyone can really help her or get through to her. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
felt like that was almost the theme or like the driving thing was just social isolation and how horrifying that can be.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's see. So, do you have any closing statements before we jump into a score so we can then spoil this thing? Because I feel like I'm ready to dig deeper to find out why.
I am ready to. So no, I don't have anything else besides my
All
score.
right. So, what is your score?
My score is an 8 out of 10. I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10.
Nice, man. That's a high score. Oh my
It is.
gosh.
I don't know what this movie it it made me think about it and it made me feel it. Those are the two things I need from the movie. I needed to
Interesting. So,
make me feel some strong stuff and make me think about some strong stuff. And
yeah.
not make me while I'm watching it like question it or nothing too stupid in the movie that takes me out of the movie. So yeah,
Yeah.
solid 8 out of 10.
And just out of curiosity, where would like The Witch and
Oh yeah.
Hereditary and like the other A24, do they fall in line with this or?
Yeah, because I those two that you just mentioned, I haven't seen The Witch in a long time. I only watched it once, but I believe I'm looking at my list. I'm pretty sure that's an 8 out of 10, but I would put The Witch a little bit lower than this movie, even like a tad bit lower. If I could do decimals, maybe The Witch would be 7.5 and this would be 8. And then Hereditary is a 9 out of 10. Like it's one of my
Oh yeah.
yeah, it just if it's this movie like I want the movie to make me feel something really strong and
Yeah.
thinks it Hereditary didn't make me think as much as this movie, but it made me feel way more. So,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
So Hereditary's a 9. Um and this is an 8 and then The Witch is right below that.
Awesome. All right. So my score, let's see. I feel like I'm being so mean because it's like I love how it was made, but I will give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Ah,
And
all right.
that's what you let's for the record, let me point out that
Yeah.
is also what you gave Black Widow and A Quiet Place 2.
Yeah. I'm 3 for 3.
Are you sure that all those movies are a 6 out of 10
Well,
for you?
so the way I rate like would I watch this movie again? The answer is no. So
Whoa.
actually, yeah, like I don't like there was like I like the moments, but like if the whole isn't I don't know, man. Like it was just so weak and it was so like I was so bored. And I'm usually not like this is the kind of movie I've been asking for in the last two podcasts. Like it takes its time, but I don't know. I just feel like it was so close to having some greater purpose. Like you were talking about Hereditary and like the emotion in that film. And like every part of that film besides the like Satan cult thing or whatever, everything is pointing to one idea, which is things that are hereditary, pain or family. Like, I don't know, it feels like such a core idea of that theme or whatever. the single thing that Ari
Hmm.
Aster chose to define his film by, and this film just feels like a lot of painful shit.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
cool, but
Yeah, that's what
I
definitely I put it like that. That's why I put the Hereditary 9 out of 10 for sure. It's a more, like you said, it's like more cohesive. Everything and every detail in the movie is pointing to that central theme.
yeah. And then the weird thing with my review score, so like I'm reviewing on what I think its potential is, and I think this film is at the margin of where it could have been a 10. I think every film could be a 10 out of 10 if
Oh,
it's given enough love, you know, and I feel like A Quiet Place was it was like barely better than average. uh Black Widow, the same thing. And so there yeah, it's weird, but that's how I kind of review films. Like I just pretend like I'm like a movie producer and I'm like, all right, this is at a 6 out of 10. If you can bump this up to an 8, I can give you your budget.
that's yeah,
I will green light this thing. Yeah.
that's good to know because that's really interesting. Because I think I have a less defined, like my 10 out of 10 is just kind of like a feeling. It's not really. I don't think I have a very good definition of my 10 out of 10. It's just it's a movie that I would want to watch over and over again, and that
Yeah.
makes me feel a lot and makes me think a lot, and just gives me really strong memories. And I don't know, and is
Yeah.
very cohesive and stuff. So yeah, mine's really vague. I should come up with a better 10 out of 10 vision, but
Yeah, man,
I like
you can
yours.
adopt mine.
I
Yeah,
like
so
yours.
like my 10 out of 10 is, can I imagine this film being any better? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, then this is a fucking masterpiece. Like this is, I can't remove anything from this. I can't add anything to this. This just feels like what it is. It's, it's like when you look at a painting in a museum by like a great painter or something that strikes you, and then you're like, I can't imagine any different shade of color on a centimeter of that painting. Like it just looks like it's all one piece, but it's all like it's a compilation of thousands of pieces and ideas or whatever.
And see, with this movie, there's only that's I guess that's it makes sense that it's an 8 out of 10 in my head because there's only the additions to it that I would make or subtractions would only be like 20% or less
Yeah.
of the movie. I just can't imagine. Like, there's a few little things I would change about it if I had it and I could change it. But in a
Yeah.
perfect world, I had perfect control. But man, there's not much that I would change about it. So yeah.
All right. Well, we're about to get into that. So that concludes our review portion of Saint Maud. If you don't want to be spoiled, you can pause the podcast now. And while you do that, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review or comment on what you think about the film or about our takes on the film, specifically mine and in the opinions and stuff. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or live on Twitch, and you can email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. And for those jumping off now who don't want to get spoiled, our next episode is going to be covering Old by the great M. Night Shyamalan. Shyamalan. All right,
Yes.
David, let's spoil this thing. So tell me the things you love about this movie.
Well, I mean, like the cinematography we mentioned, the main actress is just oof, really good, really good. There was
Actually,
yeah,
I want to hear something specific from you because
some all right.
I just now realized I didn't mention this in the review, and you brought it up and it just went over my head. But the religious stuff, I will say, I am inherently not fascinated with religion because I wasn't like I was
Yeah.
never really exposed to it as a child. And I
Okay.
feel like now thinking back on how you brought it up, it's like, well, I imagine if you had religion as a child, then there would be that weird relationship of fear, love, or hatred or hope with it. So I think, yeah. So what is your, I guess, what is your experience with like religion? And do you think that affected what you thought about this film? And what do you think about how this film dealt with it?
Yeah, probably did. It probably did make me like it more because that theme is really interesting. But um, it's interesting because I think I haven't really seen this in other movies where religion. Gosh, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really matter if we're offending any listeners, but I mean, I feel like the two types of people that are religious are they either were indoctrinated as a child, their family was religious, that's all they knew. They just grew up in it, and that's how I was. Or there's adults that convert to religion, and that usually it's out of some kind of trauma or some kind of desperation. Something
Yeah.
happened. They're either super depressed in their adulthood and they're looking for meaning, or they have some kind of addiction that they're struggling with, or mental
Yeah.
illness or something like that. And I don't think I just can't think of another movie that has that character that's an adult that specifically converts to religion because of desperation. I've just never seen that explored in a movie, and this one did it, and I think it did it really. It made it make sense. I love the scenes. I'll give you a specific, like the final or next, not the final scene, but the, I guess you could say the climax of the movie, when she is having her confrontation with the demonic Amanda, and
Yeah.
she's telling her, to she basically just gives it to her straight, and it's just like, you still believe this? Like, I didn't feel anything, it was just because I was bored, because
Yeah.
I'm dying, and it's really bored to die. And so I wanted to feel some of your religious stuff, but I didn't. I was just trying. And she's just like, grow up. Like, I think she just says, snap out of it. Like, he isn't real. You have to know that, right? It's kind of like she's talking to her like a kid, like with Santa Claus. Like,
Yeah.
you don't really believe in Santa Claus, do you? And there's this, the way her expression on her face is so good. It's that hesitation of, she really, like, she breaks for a second, and just has, you see the just sadness, like the inner sadness that really motivates her whole religious experience. But then that cognitive dissonance kicks in, and she pulls it together, and because of her schizophrenia or whatever you want to call it, her brain goes into overdrive, and she overcompensates, and all of a sudden this old lady is literally a demon, and her face stretches, and her voice is demonic. And I just think that's so interesting. That whole dynamic is really interesting, especially
Yeah.
in that scene, and there's other scenes. But yeah, that specifically, just that scene, I was like, oh, that's so good. And then the ending, I don't know if you want to wait or do it chronologically, or we can just jump around. But the very end, I just felt like I'd never seen that exactly in a movie, where literally the last second of the 2 seconds of the movie just completely just shows you the naked reality of it. And it was just done so well. I just feel like, oof, it made it really sad, and just it left you, at the very end of the movie with that kind of the whole theme of the movie, just kind of how sad it was. That
Yeah.
that obviously when she's literally burning to death, she's gonna get, there's no way that she could stay in her delusion. And it makes you think about, I guess it just made me think about all the martyrs throughout history, and it makes you wonder, like, is there a moment like that for all of them, where
Oh yeah.
there's no way that a mental delusion can take all that pain away or cover it all up. There's just no way. And then just thinking
Yeah.
about how horrifying that would be, for you to be like a true believer, and you are
And
just,
that final moment.
yes, and then that final moment, the horror of like realizing that you just threw away your life, and all you feel is pain, and you don't feel any, you tried to feel some kind of redemption or some kind of, holy moment, where God is, the angels descend and bring you up to heaven, but you don't in that last moment, and it's just pain. Like, just, oh, think about how I just have not seen that specific horror in a movie before, and so I just thought that was really good. That's what
Wow.
that's what just kind of sealed it for me, was just that theme, and those few scenes that really just like nailed it. And another,
Yeah.
while we're talking about scenes that nailed it, the scene where she is kind of rebelling, and she's going out on the town, and she goes to a bar, and for some reason, like the moment that she's sitting there at the table, and there's the group of other people that are laughing and talking together, and she's looking at them and smiling and laughing along with them, even though she's not part of their group at all. she's just sitting at a table that's kind of a distance away. Oh man, oof, just the cringe, and that, but it's so relatable. Like it's such a, I feel like everyone's probably had that moment where they feel really alone, but they're trying to feel like they're part of a group that they're not really part of. And oof, that feeling was really good. I feel like she really captured that. And then the possession scenes, the godgasms. I mean, that was super interesting and made me think. And it makes you think about what's really motivating her character. Like, is it a repressed sexuality? Even though I read in an interview that the director said no. The director said somewhere like it's not about Maud, or for me, it's not about Maud repressing her sexuality, which I think
Yeah.
I kind of beg to differ that that's probably part of. I mean, that seems like it's part of it, even if the director didn't mean for that to be part of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, that
So
was
did she
yeah.
say what in that was that a whole interview you listened to, or was it just
I read it.
that little part?
I read some interview, and I think I don't. Did we mention at the beginning of this that this was her first movie and this is a directorial debut? I mean, that's I don't
I
know.
said it in the intro, but we didn't
Okay,
actually
good.
discuss it.
Yeah, because it's like that's so impressive to me. To me, that
Oh yeah.
I'll boost the movie up a little, maybe a little more than usual, just because of that. Because it's, I mean,
Yeah.
kind of like Hereditary, like good grief, but it's just kind of really good for a first movie. I wouldn't have ever guessed that this is a first movie of someone. And what was I saying about that quote? That yeah. Oh, anyway, in the interview, I thought the only thing that I didn't like about this director in the interview, she just talked too much. It's kind of like she gave everything away about everything that she thought about the movie and all of her interpretations of the movie. Where I'm like okay, maybe you shouldn't be saying.
Yeah.
I like directors that don't tell you what they thought it, like David Lynch or something that, or Stanley
Oh
Kubrick, kind of
yeah.
like they're never going to tell you what they thought when they were making the movie, and that makes it more interesting. But
Yeah, I actually listened to two or three interviews from her and like listened to like five other podcasts reviewing the film because I was like, man, did anyone else think this was very boring? And but yeah, talking about her, like yeah, in the interview that I listened to with her, um, it did seem like she was explaining a lot of stuff, and I usually identify that with like you didn't really know what the core purpose of the film was. Like it just feels like you had a bunch of ideas, and then you're kind of throwing them all against the wall. Not that this film necessarily feels like that, but it just like I could kind of tell just the way she was talking about her film, like there wasn't a core there. Like it's just
oh, I was going to say the opposite. It seems like she overthought
really.
about it. She had too definite of a picture of
Oh,
like what the movie was, so it's kind of like when you read her thoughts about
you
the movie,
become
she gives her opinion on everything. Like, okay, like is she yes, she is definitely mentally ill, and no, she did not, there is nothing supernatural in the movie, and no, it's not about her sexuality and blah blah blah. She just gives her opinion about everything, and it's kind of
yeah.
like, god, just leave something up to people to interpret.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Interesting. Well, to wrap back, all right. So the first thing you mentioned, because I had something to say about this that I thought about, that scene with Amanda, who is the ill lady, and then with Maud, and that final scene where um, I guess she's telling her like, "You still believe in that shit." See, like that scene was like the emotional, interesting, intriguing thing that I wanted for like the whole film, kind of, because it like I kind of wish they would have focused more of the film on like that kind of relationship. Like I felt like no one was really doubting her religion, and then I never felt like I know she's doing painful things to reaffirm her beliefs or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like this film would have been way better if there was some sort of internal monologue. Like if I could hear her thoughts on what she's doing, why she's doing, and what other people were doing. I don't know.
There was a little bit of that. I mean, with her prayers, there were a few. Weren't there a few scenes of the voiceover where we got to see what she was actually telling God in her head, and it was interesting, And I don't know. I
Yeah,
remember some
but
of that.
but she was still talking to someone else. Like I want to hear like I can just imagine, and it'd be easy to add. I can just imagine like her, walking down the street and like in her head reaffirming herself when she had like the nails in her shoes or whatever.
Hmm.
and just like hearing her like I don't know, like hearing her convince herself over and over again, or some sort of like I would have loved the delusions not only to be in the visual but in the internal with her voice. Like I feel like I'm not connected to her character. And like maybe that's why I really loved like First Reformed.
Oh yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I was like, okay, wait a second. At some point, I was gonna bring that up. Like, you really like that movie, and it's very similar with themes, at
Yeah,
least. So,
but like, I felt like I knew who that character was, and I
mm,
happened to resonate with that character. But like I feel like through the diary entries and through like the ways I feel like that film dug deeper inside the character than this film did. This film felt like you're kind of seeing everything from a and it's weird because you're seeing her delusions, and then sometimes it snaps into like reality, like that final shot, which is I would agree is an amazing shot, where she's like burning alive. Like I wish maybe that would have happened more. Like maybe when she's like levitating in her room and her
ooh,
back is arched or whatever. Like what
yeah,
if the reality was she was on the ground, or I don't know.
having a seizure, yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, I could see. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. That would have been maybe that would have been an improvement, but also it might have been taken you out of. It would have been corny, maybe, or
I don't.
it would have come across too comedic or something. I don't know.
Well, in my opinion, like what's the perspective of the film then? Because it's not really
It is totally
like
her perspective, isn't it? I mean, it's
yeah,
totally inside her head until the
yeah,
last 2 seconds, I think. Uh,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just I guess I would want a deeper internalization of that. I
you
guess I don't
wanted
know. That's
more. You wanted to hear more from her, I guess. Where
well, I wanted to feel something for someone or something else. Like at least like I wanted to feel her doubt of religion instead of just her going to the bar and then giving a dude a hand
But
job and
wait a second.
sleeping with.
Instead of, the rule is like show don't tell. I mean, I feel like this movie kind of did that well, like in this aspect, because instead of giving, uh, voiceover or diary entries or something, like it just showed you,
Yeah,
like her that whole scene rebellion was showing you that there was a part of her that's just doubting or rebellious or whatever. That was the big thing, and then the her facial expressions a lot of the time I feel like did it, and
yeah,
especially in that scene that the next to climax scene. So I don't know. I don't know if I would have wanted it to be much more explicit.
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
guess yeah. I guess I'm just lacking some sort of connection. What did you think about that whole bar scene as like the whole scene as
It was a little. It was a little. I don't know, but I think we were supposed to think in a way. I can't help but think that it was done exactly like we were supposed to feel exactly how the director wanted us to feel about that. That it was kind of like we're supposed to look at this character and think, oh, she's not the type that would like do this sort of thing. So it's
yeah.
really weird that she'd be doing it, but in reality, she's the opposite. It's like that's how she was before her whatever happened to her at the hospital, and then she became suddenly pious and bought a bought a bought a necklace off of Amazon. What was it? What was it? Mary Magdalene, which
Yeah.
is very appropriate because that's traditionally, the Mary Magdalene is like the supposed to be like a horror kind of character that met Jesus and then became one of his main followers. It's not in the
Oh.
Bible explicitly, but that's kind of like the lore around her that she was a prostitute. That
Just wait, from your understanding, Maud was basically going to this bar a lot, sleeping with random
I don't
people and
know.
doing.
Well, I don't know about that. Like, I'm not like super certain saying that was exactly what it was saying, that she was very promiscuous or whatever before. Nah, I
Yeah,
think it was more just she was trying it. She was just trying that out
yeah.
to see. Yeah.
And see, like I like this. Like, if you were to write that scene down, like what happens in the scene and why the character is doing it, I think if I were to read that, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is gonna be amazing. But then watching it, I don't know. I felt like it was kind of like
Oh,
it seemed very obvious.
wait a second though.
But then,
I just remembered though. I just remembered that after she has awkward sex,
Hmm.
half rape, half sex with with the big guy, he's talking to her right before she leaves, and he says something like he's talking about how other people had told him about her and how she has sort of like a reputation. I don't know. I don't know if that was meant to be. We were meant to take that
Yeah.
literally what he was saying, but if we were meant to take that literally, I feel like
Yeah, then she was.
it was kind of implying that she was sort of like, yeah, like a promiscuous sort of Mary Magdalene type before, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden in that hospital experience, which I think from the well, I know from the because the director just explicitly in an interview told us what it was based on, but like she has like I think it only shows it for a brief shot of like her putting trying to do CPR on a guy and doing chest compressions, and her hands just kind of go through his chest, and like or
Yeah.
his chest explodes or something, and blood's coming out of his chest. And in an interview, the director said she talked to a nurse who told her that story of how she was doing that to someone who had had surgery, like had heart surgery, open heart surgery or something, and had a long
Hmm.
scar down the chest. But all of a sudden he went into cardiac arrest or something, and she had to do CPR, and her hands just went straight through his chest and just went
Oh my
into it.
God.
Yeah, the what do you call? I'm blanking on the word for the thing that they put the staples in his chest
Yeah.
just broke, and her hands just went through into his chest, and it was super traumatizing. And like she had to quit being a nurse and had PTSD and stuff. And so the director thought that was super interesting, and so put that in the movie. And so I'm just guessing that was the intention, was that she had that
Well,
traumatic
see, like
experience, and
that.
in
That sounds.
with schizophrenia, with people with schizophrenia, I just know, and from real life, it can be if something stress triggers it around the age of this character, that a really stressful experience can totally trigger full on schizophrenia. So it was
Yeah.
pretty realistic in how it portrayed it. And I know it sounded like the director did a lot of research on religion and the schizophrenia specifically. So I liked how she pulled it all together. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, see, like sounds so interesting to me. That whole like that story, and I don't know. It kind of I don't know. To me, it just felt like a just a moment instead of the the springing of the entire film. Like I feel like it would have been really cool to see that. Like if that was the cause of her becoming religious or what have you. Huh.
Yeah, it was only hinted at. Yeah, just knowing
Yeah.
that. I mean, the whole. I guess our only hints were the first opening scene. All we see is that she's in like a hospital room and her hands are bloody, and that's when she sees the roach or whatever for the beetle for the first time, that I guess represents God. Um,
The roach represents God?
I think so. I don't know. Doesn't it always
Oh.
appear? Doesn't it appear like kind of whenever she
Yeah.
has a really strong experience? Um, but yeah. So what was I saying? Yeah, there's hints. There's enough hints that I feel like if you watch the movie twice,
Yeah.
it would kind of come together more. We see we see the vision or whatever flashback she has of the guy's chest exploding, her bloody hands,
Yeah.
the fact that she ordered her cross on the internet, like a custom order cross, to wear. Like that's like, okay, she's like a very recent convert. She was not religious. It's not like she
Oh.
grew up religious. And then
Okay.
when she meets her friend on the street, and her friend calls her by the other name, and
Yeah, she has another name like Katie or
Katie,
something.
yeah, and so that's her real name, and so we realize, and then the friend worked with her in the hospital, so we realize, oh, so like she just changed her name like recently, and
Yeah.
she didn't work in the hospital. That was very recent. So like all of this has happened to her very recently, where all of a sudden she's taken on this persona of this super religious person. And oh, also the way she prays, I feel like is a giveaway, because it's a very like weird way of praying, just very informal, and she's just
Yeah.
talking like very casually.
And
To
wasn't she watching a YouTube video or something like on her lunch break at one point and she was like, oh no, she was looking
oh
at the painting. She was looking at the painting and seeing how the painting person was like putting her hands and then she was like imitating
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh yeah, this is how I do it. This looks
Right.
real
Yeah.
good.
I'd forgotten about that moment. Yeah. Yes. That's another hint. I feel like it was done really well, like subtly, really subtly, um, just of who this character is. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Hmm.
because maybe the director would, and maybe this is a little arrogant of a director to do, to make the movie where you would have to watch it twice to really pick up on all the little hints. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it should have been more explicit, but I liked it.
Yeah,
I liked
that's
it how it
interesting.
was.
See, like all these things in my mind, I'm like, yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool. But I still I still feel like I wouldn't go back to watch this movie for some reason.
Oh, and just
Huh.
sorry, and just the silly ways that she punishes herself. Like I think it was
Oh yeah.
at one point she puts like, I forgot what it is that she puts on the floor. It's something really silly, like
Like
tick,
walnuts.
yeah, like nuts or yeah, in order to kneel on them. It's really funny. I don't know. And oh, and you know what I thought was also weird about reading about how the director felt about this movie was, in the interviews she's talking about how this she felt like the movie was very funny and very comedic. But
Yeah.
I feel like that's because she didn't grow up religious, because she also says that in the interviews that she was never religious. She's coming out this from an outsider's perspective, and I guess
Yeah.
she finds those aspects of it very amusing. But to me, it's kind of horrifying, because I can kind of you can kind of imagine, like, okay, what if I had schizophrenia, and let's say
Oh yeah.
I was prone to schizophrenia, around the time that I was still religious and I hadn't dropped it yet. And it's like, or it could come back. I could see if, let's say, I was schizophrenic and it just comes back with a vengeance and really fuels that the mental illness. Like, oof, it's scary. It would be really scary.
So when you're schizophrenic, because that causes like the mania, and I assume it can cause like hallucinations or whatever.
Yeah,
Uh, are you aware that those things aren't real when you are out of like, I guess, do sch- does schizophrenia cause like manic stages, or is it kind of like a permanent state, or can it be both? And if it is just like you're in a manic state, are you then aware once you're out of that state that what you were doing wasn't reality,
I don't
or do you
think.
know?
Uh, yeah, I'm no doctor, but yeah, I don't think like I don't think it causes mania like bipolar does, like extended
Oh
mania.
yeah.
I think it's just that, from what I've read or heard or whatever, it's just that the hallucinations and stuff, even though you may part of you knows that they're not real, they're just they're so real to you that it's, I mean, I don't know. I think it's just, I think it depends on how aware you are of schizophrenia and if you know what it is. And
Mhm.
that's why I guess therapy helps them a lot, because you can, but still, it's like someone else. Also, if it makes you paranoid, you might not trust anybody else telling you that it's not real. So that's another complication of it. I don't know. Did it show her being paranoid much? I don't feel like it was like,
Yeah, it never felt like she
it
was.
wasn't a paranoid schizophrenia. It was just, I mean, there's different types of
Mhm.
schizophrenia, so it wasn't that. But it was definitely that. I liked that about the movie too, that it didn't go too overboard with the well, okay, until the end. But it was gentle with it at first. Like the hallucinations were just kind of little things, like the sky, just seeing like a swirling of the clouds, and her just interpreting that, or like
Yeah.
a towel falling off a table. Like to her, that's like, anybody who was not schizophrenic would not think anything of that, but she took those as signs.
Yeah.
So that was super interesting. Oh, and I saw, oh man, it reminded me of another movie that I just saw recently that was really good, called Take Shelter. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, that has what's his fucking name?
Yeah, I can't remember his name either, but
Oh, he's such a good actor
I
though. He's
know.
always like a villain.
Oh God,
Oh
I'm gonna
man.
look it up, because that's sad that we don't. But yeah, yeah. Oof, another
Where he
cool.
becomes obsessed with like creating a tornado shelter.
Yeah, another
See, look,
great
all right,
movie
this is all right,
depicting.
would you consider that a character study?
Ooh, yeah, I guess. Yeah,
And see,
but it was
all
more.
right.
It was not as like hyper focused on one character because he was not as isolated as Maud. So I don't know. I guess it was a character study, but it did feel like broader. It felt broad. It felt more like a commentary about the healthcare system and, the job, capitalism, and I felt like there was a lot more like broader themes in that movie, and
Yeah.
family, and I,
But see, like you could use the broaderness of this film as like the religion or the mental illness, but the fact that he has some sort of goal, like even though it's crazy or whatever, it based on not reality or whatever, like he's obsessed with doing something or getting something. And I mean, I don't know uh much about schizophrenia, but I just imagine like I think they would still have some sort of desire to do something because that's like just innately human. Like I don't think there's anyone who doesn't want to do something, even if they think they don't want to do something, they
I
kind of want to do something, or there's something driving them to do
yeah,
whatever
but
they do.
I don't know. But schizophrenia is like so severe. I feel like most of the time
Yeah,
that it really does just completely just destroy your life. So your thoughts are so disorganized, and
yeah,
your everyday experience is so uh anxiety inducing that I feel like that's why I liked this depiction of it. Was like, God, like, I mean, it's so stressful and disorienting that it makes sense that you wouldn't. It's not like this girl, she's just trying to survive, but I feel like she does have a goal. Like, I mean, I feel like it doesn't happen until maybe
the very yeah,
three
the
fourths
goal
to
to save
save her
Amanda,
soul.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like why couldn't that have been like the seed from the get-go? Like
Wasn't
why
well.
couldn't
I feel like it kind of was, but it transforms and it gets bigger as the movie goes on. But I feel like at the beginning, what it was, and this is why I reject the director's interpretation of her own like movie, is that I feel like it was just so obvious to me, at least, that Maud was lesbian or like had sexual, like, had like intimate feelings for Amanda at some point. I just felt like that was so obvious to me. Like, not just also because the way that she, the godgasms that she has, like, that's her reward, for doing good things, is she basically gets an orgasm from God. And that's so her whole uh relationship to God is basically sexual, like, it seems like. And this weird scene between her and Amanda, the only scene where Amanda even pretends to have like some kind of experience, it's almost like they're both having the same sexual experience, like religious sexual experience together. And then the way that Maud is very like protective of Amanda, I feel like that's the conflict of the first half of the movie, is that she's very jealous of Amanda, and she wants that other girl to leave. She doesn't want that. She's very jealous of that other girl that comes and does whatever with Amanda. And so
yeah.
that's the initial conflict, is it's her kind of human side. But then, of course, because of how she is, she kind of there's a psychological term for it, but I forget it. But like, where she kind of pushes that down and covers it up with thinking that, oh no, I'm trying to save her soul. That's what I'm doing. Like, it's not that I'm sexually attracted to her, it's that I want to save her soul. And so she totally just pushes that, which is a very universal. That's such a cliche of religion, that's what, all these people trying to pray the gay away. It's so I just don't understand how the director. I feel like the only reason the director denies that that's part of it is because maybe she's afraid that it's too cliche or something. But I feel
Yeah.
like it was definitely part of the movie.
That's interesting. Like I agree with yeah, like everything you said, but I would I would say that I don't think it was a sexual thing. Well, the
Really?
lesbianism part, yeah. I don't know. I don't feel that. I think it's more of a because now that we're talking about her whole how her religious thing is so uh let's use the word elementary. Like she doesn't really know what she's doing,
Yeah.
but she's doing what she thinks or what she finds online or whatever. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the whole I don't know. I just feel like even the like the saving and all that stuff, it just seems like it's not really a thought through thing until
Hmm.
the very end that she like finally actualizes it. So I think it's just jealousy. Like she's learning about this religion, she's becoming obsessed with the religion, and then she just happens to see someone who is insanely unreligious. And then because she is now suddenly religious, she is like, "Oh, this person is disgusting," and I don't know.
Oof, I don't
Uh,
know. I just feel like there's so much going on there that maybe it's all in my head. Maybe the director didn't intend it, but
um,
maybe the
no,
actresses were thinking this in their head. I don't know. But it just felt like so obvious that if this movie wasn't a horror movie, it would be like a romance. That's what I was thinking the whole
yeah,
time. I was like, if this wasn't a horror movie, it would be a romance because it's just
yeah, I would have liked that.
it's
I
about
think. Oh,
their relationship. It's about their relationship. It's about that. I mean, it's about how she wants intimacy with this woman, but she can't
yeah,
have it because of her religious craziness that she's adopted. She cannot. She has to deny herself that. So that's why her whole relationship. Because think about how unusual or how specific that is. That her relationship to God is. It seems like that she is rewarded by, but sexually. So she's rewarded physically by God when she does good things, and she's punished physically when she does bad things. I don't know. It's just so to me. It's just so like specific that I feel like that was
yeah.
for sure part of the movie, even if it's like even if the director I don't know. What do you think about that in general? Like, just you don't have to. We don't have to talk
The
about it a lot.
Godgasms.
No, 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 no. The idea of like the death of the author, like, like, is it valid to say? Do you think that like the
Oh,
director denies that this is part of the movie at all? Like, no, no, there's it's not about that. But do you
I
think it's
I
valid to say that it's about that? Because I just
I go with I read a book on poetry and it was the poet was saying once I'm done with the poem it is no longer mine. And then it's just whatever your interpretation of it that's yours and no
yeah,
matter what I say like like if you look at a picture you immediately imagine something that maybe I'm not imagining even though we're looking at the same picture. Subconsciously your brain is making connections that my brain isn't. So I would lean more towards it's whatever your interpretation is, and then I mean whatever their intention was, like it can be I don't know. I don't I normally don't care when people like well directors specifically like, well I intended this and then I got something else. Like trying to think of a filmmaker like I don't know, I can't even think of a filmmaker that I was like, wait, your film wasn't about that. Usually I I am I agree with them. But
yeah. No, I agree with you that it's kind of like once they make it, it's a piece of art, and so
yeah.
everyone is everyone's going to look at it differently and get different things based on their experiences. So yeah,
Now I do agree. I can understand the frustration. Like I imagine like if I would have wrote this and then let's say because I'm a man or whatever, they're like, well, you probably shouldn't have wrote this lesbian ass thing. And then I'm like, well, it actually was. I wasn't writing about that at all. And then like I can see the author side of like, wait, it was not about that. Like if it happens to turn into like an offensive thing or something, you're like, no, seriously, I was writing about this. It just oddly enough happens to really symbolize something else. Because I feel like that can happen too when
yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like it's sort of like yeah, I feel like it's sort of arrogant to at that point to be like no, it's like this is what it means. It's like
yeah.
or it's kind of silly. It's just kind of come on, just
Yeah.
but I guess I get why it would be sort of frustrating if it's just like totally off the wall thing that
Yeah.
people
Well,
get out
it's
of it.
like the opposite extreme is like what damn, what's her name? The lady who wrote the Harry Potter books.
Yeah, J.K.
Ah,
Rowling.
yeah, like I don't know the exact details, but I know on like Twitter, everyone hates her. Like even her
Oh yeah, yeah,
fans
yeah.
just absolutely hate her because she's like going back and saying certain characters or
Yep.
certain things that were not at all shown.
Right.
I feel like once it's out there as an author, you're fucked. You're fucked
Yeah.
for the better or for the worse, and like whatever you put in there, that's what's in there, and it's like I don't know. There's no point of explaining or defending anything because the
No.
text is there.
It's
So
just a waste of energy. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting though. Like just for her to say, explicitly it's not sexual at all when
Yeah, I
I mean
don't.
there's so much sexual things. Like even though I
Yeah,
don't necessarily agree with her having an attraction to the main lady, I do feel like there is some sort of sexual repression just
yeah,
in
man.
general.
I just feel
And
like
then
she's.
especially if we're making the tie to previously she was very promiscuous, then there's another link to that thread.
Yeah, yeah. Just that the fact that her rebellion is sexual. I mean, that's how she
Yeah.
rebelled the one time. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's so obvious, and it's kind of weird that the director denies it. But whatever, they can say whatever. I mean, that's her version of the movie. But you know,
Yeah. One thing that I thought was really cool, and it's very small things, but these are the like this is actually the thing, the stuff that I love the most about the film was the like when she would look at the clouds and they were like funneling when she
yeah,
was in the bar and there was the cups and like it was like 12 cups at someone's table and they were all spiraling water.
yeah,
Like that was the coolest fucking shit I've seen in a while. Like that
yeah.
that like I literally was like, holy fuck, that is genius.
Or did you notice like when she's having the godgasms, like how her face stretches sometimes? Like I didn't. I
Yeah.
sort of noticed it when I was watching it, but I didn't really think about it until I read the interview where she was talking about those. That was basically the main special effects in the movie were just the face stretching when she's having the really intense experiences, and then obviously at the end when the Amanda turns into a demon. But I
And did
thought
she say if that was done digitally or physically?
no, it was digital. Yeah, she said that
Yeah,
she
that's
she
what I thought.
said that I don't know. She named the company that did it, but yeah. So that was but it's very subtle. So it's a nice touch. It makes it scary. It makes it creepy in a way that you might not
Yeah.
notice while you're watching it. But like subconsciously, you're like, wait a second, her eyes should not be that wide, or
Yeah.
her mouth should not stretch that wide. Oh, there was a really good shot like that where she's after she kills Amanda, and she's like, I don't know if you remember this, but she's like rolling. Basically, she's floating away from the house and having sort of like that orgasmic experience where it's just really weird. It's creepy music, and she's just
Mm.
like, I can't even describe what her face is, but she's doing weird things with her face. But I don't know if they did specifically if they did the face stretching stuff there, but it just looks really weird because she's got blood on her
Yeah.
face and she's just floating. She's kind of basically just floating away from the building, which is really uncanny. And yeah, there's some really good. I just feel like this movie does really good creepy stuff. Um,
Yeah. It's weird though. Like I didn't the other thing that was interesting is like I see a lot of people talk about how they really love like the body horror aspects, like the walking on nails. Like what did you think about that stuff? Like did that do anything? Like did it make you cringe or
um, I don't know. It wasn't super extreme or anything, but
yeah, I didn't think it was that noteworthy, but it's like every
no.
review was like, "Oh my God, this movie will make you cringe."
Yeah, what did she do besides? I mean, she picks at the scab. She does the nails in the shoe. She
He
kneels
does.
kneels on the nuts. Um, what else? I can't remember if there's anything else. But that's
Uh,
I don't know. I thought that was interesting because again, that's another thing that you don't see in movies. I just thought that was an interesting little thing to put in because that's something that people actually used to do. They used to whip themselves. They used to
yeah,
for sure like put stuff in their shoes and
yeah.
crawl a mile to the church.
Oh, she burned herself. That was the other thing. I was like, "There's one more."
Oh right,
Yeah,
yeah, she puts her hand on the stove or whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
well, and then obviously the ending. But yeah, yeah, it's cool. I liked those things because it was kind of
yeah,
like, okay, is this her hating herself? Like, is this just the religion stuff? Is this just the religious stuff that she's read or whatever? Or is this
yeah,
like self-harm? Like, is this just like because she hates how she is? And maybe that also
yeah,
kind of pushed her into the religion thing because she wants to be someone different. She renamed herself. I mean,
yeah.
she wants to be a different person because she's just depressed or whatever. So I feel like there's more than just the schizophrenia thing.
So did
And
the director specifically say it was schizophrenia?
that's a good
Yeah.
that's a good question. I don't know if she used the word schizophrenia. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I know she said that she did a lot of research on mental illness, but I
Yeah.
don't know if she said specifically schizophrenia. But if I had to guess, because she was so specific in these interviews and just saying everything, she probably did say schizophrenia, but
Yeah.
I don't know. There's no other. I don't think there's any other mental illness that makes you hallucinate and have these feelings of delusions of grandeur and all that stuff. So I feel like it was obviously
Yeah.
schizophrenia, but um,
Yeah, man. I just wish it would have. I don't know. I wish I would have had some more to chew on in this film. Like, I wish we could have maybe started earlier in her religious journey, and then also been with her more as she's ordering that thing online, or as she's like looking into doing. Like, I don't know. I just feel like this film could have, like, how she's saying she thinks it's funny. Like, I
yeah,
feel like you could have really dug into this and not make it a comedy, but go into the absurdism of it, and then have half the audience think it's horrifying and the other half think it's comedic. Like, I think you could have really dug, because I feel like the final scene is the only scene that really, because like I laughed
at the
when that
final
last
scene.
2 seconds. Yeah, and I feel like you probably had the opposite
I don't know. I
reaction.
can't remember. I cannot remember actually. I probably did laugh, but
I
also
didn't
it's
laugh because it
horrible.
was funny. It was like I laughed out of like shock because I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh shit, you did that." Like as a filmmaker, you made that choice, and I thought
Yeah,
that was
yeah. It's definitely bold. Well, it's like the pathetic. I think that word. I keep thinking about that word. Like it's just fun. I guess that's what's funny. It's funny, and the character is funny in like a pathetic way. That's kind
yeah,
of sad, but also sort of funny. From if you don't, if you know that this, if you think this isn't a real person, this is just a character. It's kind of funny.
yeah.
But
And see, like I think that would have been such a interesting thing if the challenge to make everything kind of fit like the potency of the ending. Like I think that would have been really cool. Like well, for example, one thing I'm really confused by when she's like floating in her bedroom, is that just her imagination of herself floating? Like
yeah,
there was no okay.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I don't like scenes like that. Like I don't know why. Like that just bothers me when it's just
what?
supernatural and there is I don't know.
What do you not like about it?
I don't know. It just seemed very cheesy. Like I've seen like it just feels like something out of like a exorcism movie, you know? Like it's just
Yeah, I
floating
I
and
know
then
that is
just
a bit of it's
tense music like
yeah, it's a bit
and
of a
then her
cliche, but the way
and then her hand twisting and that like super like I don't know, it just felt like I've seen that a
oh
thousand
man,
times before.
I felt like it was just different enough that it was good. I wasn't thinking about that when I was watching it. Like I wasn't thinking about
Mm.
I was just thinking like, whoa, this is really cool. Like the shots of the water running down from the sink overflowing, like from her perspective. I don't know. I feel like it really got me into it. Maybe it was the music
Yeah.
too. I thought the music was pretty good in this movie. But yeah, something about it was really, and her projectile vomiting before. I don't know the way it happened so suddenly, and it's just like God, she's like alone, and this is happening, and it's like, it's very scary. And I just like how suddenly it went from she's just having a seizure, like a schizophrenia episode, to her having a religious experience. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. So was the projectile vomiting real?
I feel like it was. Yeah.
Okay. It looked very extreme for it to be real.
Oh, I
Like
don't
I thought
I
that
don't
was part
remember,
of
but
her.
no,
Yeah.
I think it was meant to be real. I think it was meant to be real because it was just like she was. Well, also, I don't know. Speaking of the take shelter, that was another thing that happened to. I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe that's a thing. Like that's an actual symptom of a schizophrenic episode. Is they vomit?
Vomiting?
Yeah, because that also happened in Take Shelter. Is like right
Oh
one of
crap,
his
I don't remember.
yeah one of his first episodes. He just all of a he sees something, and he just runs away and just like projectile vomits, and it's like, oh, maybe that's a
Yeah.
thing. I don't know. Either it's a cliche or it's a real thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God.
did you like the scene, uh, like the scene where her friend from work comes to her apartment, and she's just like
Hmm.
out of it, and and she's like, she's kind of like not looking at her, not responding to her, and the friend is just trying to be so nice, and you're thinking like, well, I don't know if you were thinking, but I'm thinking like, she's gonna kill this lady. Like
Oh yeah.
she is gonna hurt this lady. And I thought that was a really good suspenseful scene, because I really thought, I was like, okay, she's definitely gonna hurt this lady. Like she's gonna do something to this lady, but she didn't. She let her go. But I thought that was a really good suspense scene. And I also thought later when she talks to the nurse, because you're like, okay, she's going to this doc to talk to this nurse on purpose. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, she's stalking this lady because she knows she's gonna go here and eat lunch on this dock. So she knows she's gonna be here, sitting on this bench. And I was like super tense. I was like, what is she gonna do like to this lady? So I thought it did that really well, just like the unpredictability. Like, what is she?
Really?
How violent is she gonna be?
You
And
see,
I
like,
thought it was cool how it was like there were two false alarms. So I was, it's like, okay, she didn't do anything. It just seemed like, okay, I thought she was gonna do something to her coworker, but she didn't. And then I thought she was gonna do something to that nurse, but she didn't. She let her go. And then the climax where she just brutally murders Amanda, it almost made it more effective, because I was
yeah.
thinking up until that point, okay, maybe that's her limit. She's not going to do anything violent to someone else, but maybe she'll hurt herself, but she's not going to be violent. But then, yeah, she goes all out on Amanda. So I thought that was interesting.
That's interesting. I didn't have any of that tension. Like I didn't like those two scenes just felt like
It's just because
generic
I
setting up plot to
oh
me.
man,
Like cuz I never even thought, especially the friend, like I never thought she would kill her or hurt her.
really?
I was just like, "Oh, she's going to stand in the corner and whatever, wait for her friend to leave,
Oh, I
act
felt like it
like she's
was
okay."
it
Like,
was it was like primed for her to do something. I don't know if right before that it shows, like at some point it shows she has, am I imagining this, or did she have, well, I guess it's the gas that she pours on herself at the end to kill herself, but she had some kind of chemicals. She had a bunch of like chemicals, and I was like, "Oh god, like what is she going to do with those chemicals?" And I feel like it showed that for the first time right before that scene.
oh yeah, it did, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, she for sure is gonna do something to this lady. I don't know what she's gonna try to convert her, or like hold her hostage, or just murder her or something. She's gonna do something,
Yeah.
but she didn't, and that was cool. And I thought the tension was interesting because it was totally random, and that was scary to me. It was just the fact that she was looking at the clouds, and something about how the clouds swirled told her not, because I think it was that she was planning on doing something, but she was looking to the clouds to see what the clouds were going to tell her. And for some reason, the clouds told her not to do anything, and she decided not to do anything. And so that lady was safe. And so I thought that was super interesting, or
Oh,
that just added to the horror to me, because it's like, oh man, everyone she meets from now on is like the nurse and this lady. It's like they're all at the mercy of her mental illness, and like whatever her hallucinations are going to show her, like, and that's what happened to Amanda, is because Amanda challenged her whole worldview, her mental illness kind of fought back, and the hallucinations
um,
doomed Amanda. So I don't know.
that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't feel any. Like I felt like most of those characters were just like plot devices to get
Oh,
certain scenes in. Like I felt like the friend only existed for, I guess, backstory, but I don't
to
get why
I think
that.
it made it more pathetic to me. I thought it was really cool. I don't know if I've seen this in other movies, or I was contrasting it maybe with, how like in Joker, it's kind of like everyone's mean to him. Like, and that's
Mhm.
supposed to, that's kind of a cliche, is like, oh, like all his experiences with people, they're all bad. All his interactions with people are horrible. And that's why he becomes the way he is. But I thought it was really interesting how in this movie, the people that she keeps encountering are really nice to her and like could be a help to her. But and it's just funny. Like that to me was the funniest part of the movie for some reason, was just her
Mm.
interacting with these people that were being really nice to her, but just it didn't mean anything to her, because she could have been really violent to them. It was just luck that
Yeah.
they didn't end up on the wrong side of her hallucinations. So I don't know.
Yeah. I felt like I wouldn't say they were necessarily nice. I
Really?
actually got the feeling that they were just,
They were being really
it's
friendly.
like
like super
Well, I
friendly. I
mean,
was like, dang, like I was feeling like in any other movie, the cliche would be that these people would be really rude to her, and
yeah,
that would make us think that, oh, that contributed to her isolation and to her
yeah,
mental illness, is because everyone she interacts with is rude to her. But that was not the case. These people were all very friendly, surprisingly friendly to her. Like the
yeah,
nurse that she just randomly strikes up a conversation, and the friend that she's kind of being an asshole to that girl and just ignoring her, not interacting with her, just being. It's kind of like, dang, like this girl seems to really care about her well-being, because she's like, she's gonna come back and she's gonna check on her, later,
yeah,
she says. And so it just makes you think, like, God, this girl, like, she has people that would be nice. And even Amanda, I mean, she says the thing about the religion, God, whatever, like, snap out of it, but she's kind of trying to help her.
yeah.
And she says, I think in that same scene, she says something really nice to her. I forgot what it is, but because I just watched it earlier today, she says something, I don't know, she says something nice, that if the main character was in a different mindset, she would have taken it
Yeah.
as like, oh, like, Amanda means well. She means well. She's not like being cruel. She just, I think she apologizes. I think Amanda like
Yeah.
apologizes, like, I'm sorry for being mean or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, here we go. Here's another like hook that she could have used to have a connection with a person. But once again,
Yeah.
she rejects it and throws it away. And that's the tragedy. It just adds to the tragedy of the movie for some reason.
Yeah, I guess that, yeah, they were all very kind. I guess what I meant was none of them actually liked her as a person.
It was more pity, is what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, it felt like, like how some people are like, "Hey, how's your day?" out of like a requirement rather than
Yeah.
a
Yeah, I guess you're
it
right.
felt like a coworker kind of relationship, like, "Oh, you look like shit, so hey,
Yeah.
what's going on, man?" Like, not that that's bad, but I mean, I agree that they're all way nicer than
They
every other movie in this, I guess, over like mini genre.
Yeah, they're nicer than they have to be. And so I'm like, God,
Yeah,
like these
that is true.
she has these nice people around her, but yeah.
Yeah. Dang. Well, is there any other big things you had to say about the film? I feel like I'm kind of,
You're run out.
I think
Yeah.
I'm right out. I feel like
Um
there's, do, do, do.
yeah, I think we oh, one thing I wanted to mention was in that interview with the director, the what's I mean, just the future. This, I mean, maybe you don't care at all about this director because you didn't really like this movie a lot. But me, I'm like, dang, I want to see if this was her first movie. Maybe all those
Yeah.
things that you kind of found as flaws, maybe in her subsequent movie, she'll recognize those, and she's still learning. But in an interview, she was talking about how she's very interested in body horror, and she said, like, right now the second project that she's working on, she's
Yeah.
it's about, she said, this is her quote, she said, I've worked out that I'm interested in bodies and brains, and they're both continuing in that direction, the emphasis on body stuff. One is sort of body horror, I guess. So I'm like, hey, that'd
Wow.
be cool if her second movie is even further into body horror kind of thing. That would be super. I'm super interested in seeing what Rose Glass, what she does in her second movie.
Yeah, I'm excited to see her second film. I do think the body horror was the weakest part of this film, though.
Mm.
So that actually kind of deflates my excitement.
Oh man, I
But
feel like it was
I'll still
because
check
she
it
didn't
out.
want to go too far with it. So I feel like, ooh, if she goes further with it and just focuses on that, like Cronenberg style, it's like she could make a really interesting movie. I feel like, but we'll see. We shall see.
All right. Well, that concludes our spoiler discussion for Saint Maud. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review and comment what you thought about our opinions on this below. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, live on Twitch, and you can email us questions or opinions at cineverm@yahoo.com. And then next week, I think we're going to watch Old by M. Night Shyamalan, which
Oh
I have
yeah.
really no idea what that film is gonna be. I didn't even know he was working on another film because I know he did that Apple. What was it? Apple Plus?
Show. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch that?
Nope. Not at all. Did you?
Okay. No,
Oh.
I just know some people said it was like it was about a doll, but it was like a real baby, but it was a doll or something.
Yeah,
So
I didn't hear any good things about that. So yeah, but this
he
one,
can. He,
this one looks like a real treat, like a real
what
just
do you say?
M
Do you
Night
do
M
you?
Night Shyamalan treat. I'm looking forward to
It
it.
seems like it could be like really bad
Oh, it looks
or
really bad.
surprisingly good.
No, it looks
Yeah.
really bad. I for sure don't think it's gonna
Okay.
be good, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be like that, like the other movie of his that I'm thinking about that it might be similar to is that Elevator movie, Devil, I think it was called, where
Oh,
it's
dude,
just people stuck in an elevator and one of them is a demon just killing the others. It's just so silly and I love it. It's
dude,
great.
I actually like that movie a lot
Really?
as well.
What? What the?
Yeah, like it.
Okay,
Look,
we're
it
gonna
had
have
an
to do.
idea. It had an idea, and it did the idea very well.
Okay, we're gonna have to do like a review of that movie at some point in the future to hash that out and yeah, figure that one out.
All right, man. Well, thanks for chatting, and thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.
All right, see ya.